Exposing your roots? How much should you? Join me in a presentation inspired by my Aunt Irmarie. And stick around for Sisters Talk here on Granny's Front Porch. My dear sweet Aunt Irmarie passed away over 10 years ago at age 92. She brightened this world with her grace, humility, and wisdom. Over the last 4 years of her life, I grew very close to her, and we engaged in many delightful phone conversations. She was a Christian mentor of mine and a beloved link to my mom and grandmother, and a fellow Ponderer. Several years ago, she shared with me a few of her Sunday school notes and photos. One of the photos she shared was of her sisters, Daisy, Ruth, and herself, taken intertwined in the roots of trees out at Louisiana's Catahoula Lake. Looking at that tree really resonated with a writing that I found through her Sunday school notes. And I want to share this writing of Irmarie's because it is so indicative of the fruits that flourished from her and all the Wright siblings' lives. She writes, "The Word of God likens man to many objects, such as changing grass, fading flowers, and a chaff which the wind drives away. But the writer of the first psalm speaks of a man as a tree, something of great beauty, of practical value, a living and growing thing, and most important of all, a fruitful thing." Psalms 1:1-3. We have all, at some time or other, had our attention directed to an especially beautiful tree and maybe wondered, what is the secret to its beauty and strength? The leaves, limbs, and trunk are evidences of strength, but the real secret is in that part which cannot be seen. The source of strength is the great roots, which burrow far into the ground and reach out for life-giving nourishment. We know that these roots are the tree's great anchor, that which holds it securely through storms and rains. But even a tree is secure only when its roots hold firmly in the ground. Survival depends on that which cannot be seen. As we liken ourselves to a tree, we think of these words from Hebrews 3:6. But Christ as a son over his own house, whose house we are, if we hold fast the confidence and rejoicing of the hope firm until the end. As a Christian, our strength all depends on what cannot be seen by the naked eye. When we see someone who is an outstanding Christian, we know that that person is one who hungers and thirsts after righteousness, and that his roots have burrowed far down into the things of righteousness and truth. That person desires their strength from spiritual food, which goes to build all the evidences and beauty of the spiritual structure of character, which is observed by others. As we think of the fruits of a Christian, we'll think first of wisdom, not wisdom as the world looks upon it, but wisdom and the things of God. In Proverbs we read that she, wisdom, is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her. Proverbs 3:18. And the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that winneth souls is wise. Proverbs 11:30. Therefore, the natural sequence to being godly, wise, is the winning of souls for the kingdom. The Bible says that the value of a soul is inestimable. So, We know that it is exceedingly wise to win souls, and that the winning of one soul is a greater attainment than anything we would possibly achieve in this world. Everything else falls short. Another fruit from the tree is humility. Humility is a sign of strength. It is impossible to be truly humble unless a person is a strong Christian character, a disciple of the meek and lowly Jesus. Strength of character is never exemplified in supposed superiority or by a proud person. Jesus was prepared to mingle with the lowly and in a humble way. 1 Peter 5 through 6. There are many fruits by which a Christian may be recognized, and sometimes we might envy someone who is stronger spiritually than we are. The so-called pillar of the church. The one who is always dependable, and who by their action shows that he walks with God. But it is your privilege and mine, as followers of Christ, to grow in grace and in the knowledge of our Savior, and to possess this strength that comes. I just want to thank Irmarie Scott for gracing us with her blossoms. The aroma still lingers today. Thank you. Here we are. Thanks for joining us again here at Granny's Front Porch. And today it's just Krista and myself, Emily, having our little sisters talk on Granny's Front Porch.
Sunday afternoon.
Yes, it's a Sunday afternoon. I'm kind of pulling Krista in blind on the topic today. She hasn't seen the presentation that you just watched, but she knows a little bit about what's going on. So we're going to discuss today about our interpretations. That was an interpretation in the presentation was based on what I felt and Irmarie, her feelings were about exposing her roots. And she gave me, in some of my many visits in her last few years, she gave me some of her Bible study notes, and we really got deep. And I felt that she gave me her blessing to share that with the world. Just her thoughts and feelings with her walk with Christ and God. So Kristen and I may not get that deep into that, but we're just going to touch on the surface of what we feel our interpretation of exposing our roots and what's important about it, and what are some should you be careful? Should you not expose everything? Should you not expose your roots? That these roots are also shared by other family members in this family tree. And if you expose your root, are you exposing their root? And will they not like that? So, Krista, what's your thoughts?
So I love the analogy of the tree. Trees are very important and special to me. I live on 6 acres with lots of wooded area and trees, and they're a part of my everyday life. Wouldn't say I'm a tree hugger, but I have been known to hug a few trees, and I appreciate the wisdom that they provide for us. Also the sustenance for our biological existence depends on trees.
Oh yeah,
we're talking very much, and so to use them as a spiritual concept is very wise and very easy thing to do because there is a lot to learn from trees, metaphorically, spiritually, and just physically and biologically. So I went back just a few minutes ago and reread the post that you made over 10 years ago. And I loved her symbolism and the message that she gave. I mean, that's a message that can be used and taken to heart, whether you're a strong Christian or not. I mean, those are just good basic. I want to say this though. One thing I really appreciate and rereading the was that a well those were Sunday school notes or an essay. I'm not sure
Yeah,
what.
I think she was doing a Sunday school presentation for her Sunday school class.
So I'm going to go off on a tangent because it's not like we do that very often. We always stay on task and stay focused to the topic. We never ramble. Okay. As I was reading that, it so reminded me of, this can tie into our roots or our heritage, we come from a long line of writers.
Oh yeah.
On both sides of the family, really. You shared during our talk about Dad. He wasn't officially a writer or published anything or did that as a career or anything, but he took copious notes, which we could say were really journaling. It was journaling. It was his Bible study notes. He wrote out prayers, but that was reflections. They sometimes did read like an essay. He was a deacon at one point, and he gave little sermonettes, short sermons in our church, and he would write those out. He would give speeches sometimes, and he would write those out. So he was a writer. I know our great grandmother and our grandmother on his side of the family, his mother and his grandmother wrote us letters as children.
Oh, that's right.
That was back when we received letters. They were better about writing to us than Mom's side of the family was.
I am so glad you brought that up. And we'll finish your talk.
Yeah, and so from Dad's side of the family, they were writers. They did express through the written word, even if it was simple things. But just to know that they took time out of their day, they sat down with pen and paper, and they let their thoughts flow. That was a meditative, that was an exercise of exposing roots maybe sometimes, but it was an exercise in connecting with that within yourself and that without yourself, that is the inside and the outside. Writing is a tool that we have in our existence as human beings right now in this day and age. It is a tool we can use. It's not the only tool, and that if someone doesn't have the ability to write, there's so many different ways we can connect to spirit or until our internal world ourselves. There's many ways to do that, but writing is a tool that assists us in that. And then of course on Mom's side of the family, all of Aunt Irmarie and her sisters, Granny, all her siblings. Well, the female, I don't know, I wasn't as close to our great uncles, but all the great aunts, they all wrote poetry. I mean, I have poetry. And look, I want to share this. This was not planned. But let me show you this. It's sitting right here by my. You remember this?
Yeah, roses are for a while, but sisters are for always. Can you bring up the picture
Forever.
a little bit closer?
For always, yes.
Can you the picture?
Yes. I don't know if
you can't make out
this may be a.
But it's fine.
So this isn't really a poem, but I think Aunt Ruth, Granny's oldest sister, made this. But I don't know if you recall, but she was a poet. I
I
mean,
have some of her writings.
I have more of her writings than anybody's. I mean, and Granny wrote, and I mean, they all wrote. That was part of their life. That was part of their spiritual practice.
Yes.
Um, and 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 I know for me, I know for us three, I'm not sure about Brady, but for us three girls, writing has always been an important part of our life, our spiritual life, our personal lives, our work that we do. Writing's a big part, and I've kind of run away from it a little bit. I kind of, I ain't got time for that, and
I
oh, it
know.
becomes stress. But when I actually sit down and do it, whether it is noteworthy for any other use other than myself, it may not be worthy of publishing or sharing with others. It is so beneficial to me.
Yes.
It's not a habit for me. It's not a part of my daily practice, but when I do it, it it is so cathartic. It's special. It's magical.
I,
And so as when I was reading that, not even paying attention to what the message of the writing was, that's what hit me the strongest is, oh my God, this is so a part of our heritage on both sides. You know, it just reminded me of how writing is important. And I want to encourage you, because I think you right now, you're feeling the call to incorporate writing back into your life more
yeah.
as a daily
Yes.
practice.
Yes.
And I want to just to encourage you that it's in your DNA. So yeah, you got it.
I was gonna just I'm gonna touch on one. I just pulled down a box that's full of journals, and I don't even remember writing in all these 20 journals I have full of writing. Two, Brady is a writer. He writes music, so I haven't.
You're right.
Yeah, and I don't.
totally see. I forgot that he wrote lyrics. He wrote
Yes,
like yes.
and
So
maybe
yes,
one day
he can tap back into that.
Yes. But I'm going to go circle back to where you mentioned our the on our dad's side, the paternal matriarchs or whatever. That letter writing. I know we've got several. I think you and Jennifer probably had more letters than I did, but I'm going to want us to share those. And I've been trying to, we've had close, intimate, conversations on Granny's front porch with, my granny, her sisters, our mom. But we didn't really have that time with the paternal side and don't really know what all they want to share about themselves, if I'm here telling people about them. And I kind of just did some prayers and just kind of asked. And it came to me this morning that they're like, well, you got our letters.
Oh my
goodness. You got our letters. And right now, let's just go with that. Then maybe we don't need to go into other things that we haven't shared with you before. But let's just go with the letters.
And you know what? Actually, so let's say this right here. Maybe the details or certain incidences that happened in our ancestors' life, that's not really what we always need to know all the details about or learn the truth about. Maybe that's not what we need to learn or what needs to be shared.
Yes.
But just who they were as the essence of who they were. You know what? I don't think we are always the things that we do. I hope.
Or what happened to us.
Or what happened to us. I hope that my actions or actions that were put upon me do not define who I really am. Now, I do know there's accountability. Yes, our actions do. They'd say actions speak louder than words, and that's true. But we're not the mistakes we make. We're not all the accomplishments we make. We are not just our failures, and we're not just our successes. There's an aspect of us that we are, and it's that energetic feeling.
Yeah.
That energetic, I can't think of the word, but you know, you can be around somebody and you just get a feeling. It's a physical, tangible sensation. And that may be what needs to be shared more than facts and details and events. Now, those will come into play some, but sometimes you just want to get to know a person. And the best way to get to know a person sometimes is just to be with them, sit with them, share space with them. And sometimes that space is not in a physical area, it's virtually, or it's through writing, it's through holding an object that someone had. So how ironic that you
reading the letters is for sure.
They told you don't forget about the letters. And then as I'm reading this from Irmarie, I'm thinking about Dad's family, thinking, oh, but we had their letters. We had their
that's who I was. Oh my goodness, isn't this?
And that's how we can get to know them. That's how we can bring them to the front porch, is through the writing. And you know, it's not just about the words that they wrote down or the stories they were telling, because at first glance, some of those letters were very, not mundane, but just simple.
Just talking about the weather.
What they did, you know, pulled weeds or, you know, baked a cake. But it's the love and the energy behind those words.
Yes.
Just that they wanted to make a connection.
Yes.
And that's beautiful. And here's the beautiful thing. I feel that it's beyond space and time. That piece of paper, we can time travel back or forth through the reading of that letter and connect with them that way.
To me, the most important words are just.
Don't you love words?
Words are great, and you can, whether it's the Holy Bible or other religious works,
or a simple book of poetry, or a philosophy book.
It pulls you into that space with it at that time. You are there. That is a beautiful analogy, Chris. I've never really put two and two together, how you can just be with it at that time.
Me either. It's new for me. I mean, well, to verbalize it, I have felt it before, because even sometimes I'm not a big fiction reader, but even to read a good book of fiction or a good or just an article about a historical figure or an event that happened, like we all experience that, where you feel like you're there, you're not there, because you know what, you are.
No, I think that's just what I wanted to touch on, is how much of our roots do we expose. And I was thinking about Dad. I remember our father and one of his brothers, they always had a mission to dig up dirt on stuff. And they would go back to where
and rehash the same events over.
Rehash, but find out. And I think that you know, I think we inherited a little bit of our father's tenacity to expose roots because he was a root exposure. He did, and he exposed his roots. He did.
Okay, and so let's take that to
Made a lot of people mad.
Yeah, a physical, the analogy of a tree.
Mm-hmm.
So the roots are meant to be underground.
Yes.
And so the roots are not meant to be constantly exposed.
Or they'll die.
Right. The tree roots. But back when I gardened and worked with plants a lot, I don't do that as much now, but I did have a time where I did. Sometimes in order for the health of the tree, so out in the natural environment, when the ecosystem is getting to thrive and function the way it naturally does, nature has a way of taking care of itself. And when a tree's ready to die, it's going to die. And they've studied. I mean, and indigenous peoples have known this for eons, but science is finally coming around to the fact that plant life is very intelligent, and up under the soil, trees are all speaking to roots are like our neural network, like they're talking to each other, they're sending signals, they're in a symbiotic relationship with other microorganisms and the whole mycelium kingdom, what the mushrooms and fungi and all those things, like they're all intertwined and they're living together. They have there's this beautiful ecosystem under the ground that we just, unless you are a scientist that does that, or you're an avid gardener or geologist or something that gets you in the dirt, we forget. We think all life happens above
right
where we are, above the ground, when there's this whole other world beneath the soil. Okay. And so out in that environment, I think nature has a way of taking care of things, and nature has a way of exposing roots, maybe, or organically transmuting parts of roots that are no longer serving a purpose through decay or disease. Maybe disease sometimes is a way of healing. You've got to, there's many, and there's many
disease. A part of the root, part of the root can die off, so the other part can.
Correct. And there's so many biblical analogies, stories in the Bible using trees as a metaphor for so many things. But back when I was a more avid gardener, there were times to expose the root. There were times, like if you were going to transplant, if you had a house plant and you needed to put it in a bigger pot. I remember there were times that, since I was repotting it anyway, it was kind of harsh, but I would kind of shake some of the dirt off the roots, and I would look at the roots, and I would trim. Oh, I'm gonna keep talking, okay? I would trim the unhealthy or dead parts that are just, or just the parts that you just intuitively know when you're a gardener what needs to go and what doesn't. And you would expose those roots so that you could put it in a new pot with fresh dirt, fresh compost, fertilizer, whatever it is you were going to put, so that it could grow. And I think nature, when there's weather changes that may flooding or drought or winds that would come in and change the soil around the roots, it would automatically expose those roots. So to decide what we're going to expose and what we're not going to expose. That's the hard thing. And especially
Yeah.
who we expose it to and how we expose it.
Right.
And is exposing our, like we said earlier, I don't know if it was on this recording, but somewhere else or just in our conversation off camera, that we may feel the need to expose one of our roots, but that may affect someone else who it's not in their best interest for that root to be exposed, because we may be two separate trees, but our roots are sharing the same area of soil.
Yes.
And do we shake that soil away from them for the health of our root, but it's detrimental to their root?
Right. So true.
And so, you know, what is the right thing? That's just something we have to go into our quiet space within ourselves or within our higher power, or our guides, or whatever you want to call God, Jesus, spirit guide, your higher self, or just your heart. Look in your own heart.
Yes.
Sometimes our heart tells us something different than our brain. And then we have our gut. You've got your gut feelings, you've got your heart feelings, and you got the brain rational feelings. And sometimes all three don't match up.
It's true.
And so that's hard. So, you know, I guess, you know, if you're in the Christian, but whether you're a Christian or not, you can still use the same. There's so many examples in the Bible, you know, to give guidance. And I think, you know, a lot of philosophies and modalities and different, you know, other belief systems.
Yes.
Use trees and roots and leaves and branches, all the bark, the inner rings. They're all very significant to our own life cycles.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Yeah, this worked out so much better than I had planned. Thank you, Krista.
So great, it made you cry.
I'm just in awe of when I get inspired to look at something a certain way, and then I can meditate on it and then connect with you or sister to talk about it, and then y'all can have similar impressions. And it's like woo woo, you know. Woo.
And we did talk before you started recording. I started to ask, "What are we talking about?" And then I said, "Well, no, don't tell me. Let's just."
I know.
Let's just free, you know. Just let's see what happens, and just tell me what we're going to talk about when we get.
Yeah. Like I said, this was not this tangent of going off was not even discussed, but it was right where it needed to go. And I guess we've shared enough on this topic at the moment. Maybe Jennifer will join in. I'm not sure. She just wasn't available for a talk today, but if not, she'll join us on the next topic.
You know, you can do another part 2.
So there might be a part 2, or there might just be another topic, you know, at a later date. So I think thanks for sharing your time with us today. I think Krista's frozen, but I guess we'll end now. She's not going to like that grin she has on her face, but we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Great Grandma Wright was 95 and can remember all of these verses. I've got you in the shot.